Once again, we want to thank you for being here with us on the Alabama Way. And once again, for those who may be just tuning in, we're talking to attorney Jimmy Calvert, and we're talking about bankruptcy. So when we left off, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the common reasons for a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13?
Someone calls me up and they are interested in a bankruptcy. I will ask them what kind of debt they have. And generally it's credit card debt, personal loans, and medical bills, which all three are dischargeable in bankruptcy. The most common reason people need to file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, the most common, they may be behind on the mortgage by 4 months, 3 months, and they're about to foreclose. Or they're behind on their car payment, and they want to keep their car and to keep their home. In a Chapter 13 case, for example, someone can consolidate the mortgage arrears and the arrearage of financing for the cars into the bankruptcy plan, repayment plan, either 3 to 5 years, on top of other debt that they would owe.
Okay. Now, when will you be discharged from bankruptcy?
The going period of time for a Chapter 7 case is 90 days. Your attorney will file your case. There will be a meeting of the creditors hearing scheduled approximately 30 days after filing. The debtor gets a notice from the court of that time, date, and location. And then after the hearing, no debtor can receive a discharge for 60 days from the date of that hearing. So 90 days is the minimum days that people are in. And then they'll get a discharge in the mail after about 90 days.
Okay. Now, I know a lot of people want to ask the question, when will I ever be able to get credit again? If I do this, when can I get credit?
As I mentioned to you earlier, your credit score will be seriously affected negatively. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it is in the way that you use your future credit. To answer your question, many of my clients will start receiving credit card offers soon after discharge.
Really?
Because the future creditors out there know that you're cleared of debt and now you have an opportunity to start all over again. And again, it's in the way that you use your future credit is how your future credit will be affected positively or negatively. Offers for automobiles from local dealerships will come into the mail. May even receive some calls of solicitation for future credit and future vehicle offers.
Okay. Now, what can I keep in filing? Once you file bankruptcy, are there certain things I can say, well, I'm going to keep this, don't put this in it, or, like that? Okay,
good question. When someone, for example, files a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, there's a trustee assigned to the case. And overall, the trustee owns everything that debtor owns, with the exception of what's exempt. Okay? For individual, there's a personal property exemption of $7,500 on personal property, and a real estate exemption of $15,000 per individual. And a Chapter 7 joint case, those numbers are doubled. As long as the attorney can assess the assets of his client, the debtor, and fit those assets within that $7,500 range, those assets can be kept. Also, if a debtor has a secured account on a car or a home, and they want to keep that car or home, they can reaffirm the debt and remove it from the bankruptcy protection and continue making their regular scheduled payments on their vehicles and also their home.
Okay. Now, how many times can you file bankruptcy?
Chapter 7 case, you cannot file a Chapter 7 case until 8 years after the date of the prior filing.
Okay. Now, after 8 years, so that's when you can file again if you have to. Okay. Now, what are the key major events in the bankruptcy process?
During the course of the bankruptcy case, your case will be filed. The most positive upfront benefit, if you want to say that, versus impact, will be that you're no longer harassed by creditors.
Okay.
The phone calls will stop. All lawsuits, for the most part, have to be stayed or dismissed during the pendency of the bankruptcy term of, say, 90 days. You will have to attend a meeting of the creditors hearing, as mentioned earlier. That may take a morning of your time away from work. You do have to take a course in financial management. You can do that online or in person, and that can take some time before you get a discharge.
Okay. Now, when will the bankruptcy actually be over?
Within about 90 days of filing the bankruptcy case.
Of the 90 days of filing. But on your credit report, it shows, now if some things that should have been in the bankruptcy, are those things just wiped off your credit report?
Yes.
Are they still on there?
They will be on your credit report. I recommend to my clients that they have a conversation with the credit bureau, 1 to 3 that's there, maybe 3 or 4 months after the bankruptcy discharge. There's an overall rule for the most part that once you file a bankruptcy and you get a discharge, you're discharged from all debt in your name from the time you file that case. As long as it's a non-dischargeable debt, not a tax, a student loan, or an obligation for alimony or child support. I do recommend that my client, at about 3 months after getting a discharge, do order a credit report from all 3 bureaus separately and make sure that the information is true and correct to the best of their knowledge. And if it's not, to communicate with that credit bureau about disputing that particular item.
Okay. Now, I think we talked about this, but there's some debts are just erased off your debt. Am I correct? What are those?
No, ma'am. It's discretionary to the credit bureau, whichever one you use, Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, if they want to remove that prior obligation in its entirety or not. It can be disputed, but it will stay on your credit for a certain period of time. However, there will be an identification of a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, for example, on that particular creditor. So when you're looking at your credit report, it'll show a Capital One bill for $5,000. It'll state closed, and there'll be a line speaking of the fact that this debt was discharged in bankruptcy.
Okay. You know, I want to thank you for explaining this to us today about bankruptcy. But before we go, and we just got a couple of minutes here, I know something we talked about before the show here, and it was about wills.
Yes.
A lot of time people do not think very much or important about having a living will, but it is important, isn't it?
It is. I believe a last will and testament can be the most important document that an individual will execute or sign. I always tell people that if you pass away as a resident of Alabama, the state of Alabama's got a will for you, like it or not. It may not go the way you would like it to go, but most likely it'll definitely go the way the state wants it to go. Okay?
Okay. So it's good to get a will.
Yes, ma'am, it is. It is wise.
Okay. Listen, thank you again for taking out time to come and see us. Listen, if somebody want to get in contact with you, how do they do that?
Well, my name is Jimmy Calvert. I practice in the Birmingham area and also the St. Clair County area. And my direct phone number is area code 205-541-9864. And my practice focuses on personal injury, estate planning, and personal bankruptcy.
And also, you've got a website, don't you?
JimmyCalvert.com.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you.